You finish a completely normal conversation. Nobody insulted you. Nothing dramatic happened. It may not have even lasted that long. But the second you're alone, you don't want another message, another question, or another voice. You just want silence. And that's the strange part. Because a conversation is rarely just talking. Sometimes you're reading their face, monitoring your tone, choosing the safest words, predicting reactions, deciding what not to say, and trying to keep the whole interaction comfortable. So maybe you're not exhausted from talking. Maybe you're exhausted from everything you were doing while you talked. Think about the conversations that don't drain you. Maybe you're sitting with someone you've known for years. You say something badly. They understand what you meant. There's a pause. Nobody panics. You don't have to fill it. You don't carefully inspect every expression on their face. You don't rehearse the next sentence while they're still finishing theirs. And when the conversation ends, you simply move on with your day. Now compare that with a conversation where you feel slightly less safe. It could be your boss, someone you want to impress, a relative who gets offended easily, a person whose mood is difficult to read, someone you like but don't fully trust yet, or sometimes, strangely, just an ordinary person on an ordinary day when you don't quite feel like yourself. Suddenly, the conversation has another layer. You're not only talking, you're managing the talking. You're listening to what they're saying while also listening to yourself. Was that too much? Was that rude? Did I sound weird? Should I explain? Are they bored? Why did their face change? Do they disagree with me? Should I change the subject? Now imagine trying to run all of those questions while still appearing completely relaxed. That's work. Invisible work, but work. Let's call this the performance layer. Not a diagnosis, just a useful name for that extra layer of effort that can show up when part of your attention drifts the conversation and starts managing your performance inside it. The strange thing is that the performance layer can make you look socially skilled. You may become very good at noticing when somebody wants to speak. You know when to soften a sentence. You sense tension before anyone names it. You remember what people care about. You can shift your energy depending on who is in the room. You know how to keep an awkward conversation moving. Those abilities can be genuinely helpful. They may make you thoughtful, easy to talk to, considerate, diplomatic. Maybe even the person other people trust when a situation becomes uncomfortable. So the goal isn't to stop caring about how you affect people. The problem begins when awareness becomes supervision. When instead of participating in a conversation, some part of you stands outside it with a clipboard. Watching, correcting, scoring. And now every sentence serves two purposes. It has to communicate what you mean, and it has to protect you from what might happen if you say it poorly. That's when a 10-minute conversation can start feeling much longer than 10 minutes. Because your mouth is doing one thing while your attention is doing 6. And there's another process running underneath that. Prediction. Human conversation is uncertain. You don't fully control what the other person thinks. You don't know exactly what they'll say next. You don't know how they'll interpret a sentence. And if uncertainty feels uncomfortable, your mind may try to compensate by predicting. You start preparing answers before you need them. You imagine where the conversation might go. You search for signs of annoyance. You think about how to avoid misunderstanding. You decide whether to tell the whole truth, half the truth, or the socially convenient version of the truth. Let's call this the prediction loop. Again, not a clinical term. Just the experience of trying to stay one step ahead of the interaction so that nothing catches you emotionally unprepared. The prediction loop can feel like control. If I can predict the reaction, I can avoid the awkward moment. If I use exactly the right wording, nobody will misunderstand me. If I notice the mood shifting early enough, I can fix it. And sometimes that works. But there is a hidden cost. The more possible reactions you prepare for, the more versions of the conversation you have to carry at once. There's the conversation that's actually happening, the conversation you expect might happen next, the conversation you're trying to prevent, and sometimes the conversation you're already planning to replay later. No wonder silence feels good. Silence doesn't require prediction. Nobody's face needs interpreting. Nothing has to be repaired. There is no next sentence to prepare. For a few minutes, all those open tabs can finally stop needing attention. This is why two conversations of the same length can feel entirely different. 20 minutes with one person can leave you feeling lighter. 5 minutes with someone else can make you want to vanish for the rest of the afternoon. The clock doesn't measure the whole workload. A conversation can be brief and still require enormous internal coordination. Imagine a coworker casually asks what you think about a decision you hate. The question takes 5 seconds. But now you have to decide how honest to be, how political to be, whether your answer will travel, whether disagreement will create tension, how your face looks while you're answering, whether you've said too much. Then the conversation ends. But your attention doesn't. An hour later, you're making coffee and suddenly thinking, why did I phrase it like that? Maybe they thought I was criticizing them. Should I have said something different? You reopen a conversation that no longer exists. Let's call this the after echo. The after echo is what happens when the social event ends but the processing continues. You replay a sentence, then an expression, then your response. Then a better response arrives 30 minutes too late, and now the conversation has taken another hour of energy without the other person even being present. This is where people sometimes reach a conclusion that sounds obvious. I'm just bad with people. Or my social battery is tiny. Or I guess I'm extremely introverted. Maybe. But those explanations can sometimes be too simple. Because the better question may not be, how much social interaction can I tolerate? It may be, how much work am I doing inside the interaction? That changes the entire picture. Maybe the problem isn't that you have a smaller battery than everyone else. Maybe some conversations are making you run too many processes at once. That is the midpoint. Because once you see the hidden workload, you can spot something important. The people who drain you may not always be the ones who talk the most. Sometimes it's the people around whom you monitor yourself the most, and the people who energize you may not always be exciting or entertaining. Sometimes they're simply the people around whom your mind can rest. You don't need the flawless sentence. You don't have to anticipate every reaction. You don't have to make every silence a problem. You don't have to check whether the version of you appearing in the conversation is acceptable. You can just be there. And this creates an interesting paradox. The harder you work to make a conversation feel effortless for the other person, the more exhausting it may become for you. You keep the energy smooth. You prevent awkwardness. You absorb tension. You ask the next question. You laugh in the right places. You soften your disagreement. You make sure they don't feel uncomfortable. And because you're good at it, nobody notices how much effort it costs. To them, the conversation felt easy. From your side, you were carrying it. That doesn't mean every tiring conversation is unhealthy. Important conversations can be exhausting because they matter. Meeting someone new requires attention. Supporting a friend in pain requires emotional presence. Navigating conflict requires restraint. A job interview probably should require more effort than talking to someone you've known for 15 years. Energy cost alone doesn't tell you whether an interaction was good or bad. The useful distinction is between effort that serves something you value and effort that happens automatically because you feel responsible for controlling the entire interaction. Those are not the same thing. One leaves you tired because you chose to invest. The other can leave you tired because you never realized you had to manage everything. That belief can show up in small ways. You think it's your job to prevent silence, your job to make sure nobody is disappointed, your job to keep the mood positive, your job to understand what everyone means before they explain it, your job to make yourself easy to interpret, your job to never say the awkward thing, your job to leave every person with the correct impression of you. But no conversation gives you that much control. You cannot guarantee that someone understands you perfectly. You cannot prevent every awkward pause. You cannot know exactly why someone's expression changed. You cannot manage another person's private interpretation of every sentence you say. And trying to do all of that can turn conversation into a performance you are never allowed to stop directing. So what changes? Not necessarily becoming more social, not forcing yourself to attend more events, not convincing yourself that you shouldn't need alone time. Sometimes the first change is smaller. Notice which layer is actually exhausting you. After a draining conversation, instead of only asking, "Why am I so tired?" ask, "What was I carrying in there? Was I listening? Or was I listening and monitoring myself? Was I speaking? Or was I speaking and predicting 5 possible reactions? Was I being considerate? Or was I trying to take responsibility for the other person's entire emotional experience? Did I express myself? Or did I spend the whole conversation editing myself in real time?" Those questions separate connection from management. Then try a second shift. Allow one small piece of the conversation to remain unmanaged. Not recklessly, just imperfectly. Let a pause exist for 2 seconds longer. Say, "I need a second to think." Ask what someone meant instead of guessing. If you aren't sure whether they're upset, resist writing the entire explanation in your head before you have evidence. Let someone misunderstand a minor point and clarify it normally. Say a sentence that is good enough instead of chasing the safest version. This is not about becoming careless. It's about testing whether every social variable really requires your control. Because every variable you stop trying to control is one less task running in the background. And there is one more piece: recovery. Wanting silence after a demanding interaction does not automatically mean something is wrong. Sometimes solitude is simply useful. There are moments when your attention has been pointed outward for a long time, and quiet allows it to come home. The difference is whether silence is recovery or escape. Recovery says, "That took energy, I'm going to let myself reset." Escape says, "That took energy, therefore I should never do it again." Those two responses can look identical from the outside. Both may involve closing the door, ignoring the phone, making coffee, taking a walk alone. But psychologically, they point in different directions. One restores your capacity. The other can slowly shrink the range of situations in which you feel capable. So maybe the goal isn't to eliminate the need for silence. Maybe the goal is to make silence a place to recover, not a place where you hide from the possibility of another imperfect interaction. And maybe that is the more helpful way to understand your social energy. You are not a battery with one fixed capacity stamped on the side. Your energy changes depending on the interaction, who you're with, how safe you feel, how much uncertainty you're carrying, how much of yourself you're editing, how much responsibility you believe belongs to you, how long the conversation continues inside your head after the other person has left. Some conversations ask for your voice. Others gently ask for your voice, your attention, your prediction, your self-control, your emotional regulation, and your performance at the same time. Those are not equal workloads. So the next time one ordinary conversation leaves you strangely exhausted, don't immediately interpret the tiredness as evidence that you're bad at people. Treat it as information. Maybe you were carrying too many tabs. Maybe you were trying to read a mind that wasn't yours to read. Maybe you were managing an impression that didn't need perfect management. Maybe you were protecting everyone from an awkwardness they were perfectly capable of surviving. And perhaps the answer isn't to become someone who can talk endlessly without tiring. Perhaps it's to become someone who knows which parts of a conversation are actually theirs to carry. You can care without controlling. You can notice without interpreting everything. You can be thoughtful without constantly supervising yourself. You can need silence without turning silence into a verdict about who you are. And when some of those background processes finally close, conversation may stop feeling like something you must do. It can become what it was meant to be: two people talking, not one person talking while secretly trying to manage the entire room.